Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is News and Week in Review. We're going to be diving into a bunch of things, a bunch of assorted news pieces, the topic of the week, which is one I've actually talked about in the past, but I want to talk about it again, so we're going to. And then, of course, the games I played, or specifically the highlight games I played, and then all the videos, just a quick recap in case you missed anything and want to see what's out there. But with that, let's go ahead and dive into starting off the bat with news and WSBG World Series of Board Gaming. This is not a sponsored segment. They have been a sponsor of the channel before. They will be a sponsor again, but this is rather, just so you know, Dice Tower West. Join us at Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for the first WSBG regional qualifier. Basically, they're doing some qualifiers for WSBG. They're doing a bunch of networking with the, well, obviously a variety of channels that you're watching, as well as, Dice Tower West. They're going to be working with them. You have, you can also win your ticket and hotel stay to Dice Tower West 2024. So effectively, they're kind of having a mini WSBG kind of events going on at Dice Tower West where you can win things. Check this out. All the links down below. You'll be able to see all of that. That's going to be our first news piece over there. From then we have Wiz-War coming back to Kickstarter, which was supposed to be me telling you, hey, this is coming soon to Kickstarter, but I guess I missed talking about this soon enough, so now it's actively on Kickstarter as we speak. But Wiz-War, the classic board game of Wizardly Duels, returns in a new edition. This has had like 7 editions at this point. I think Wiz-War had like 6 editions, then Fantasy Flight took over, and now it's coming back. I'm not going to heavily go into the actual Kickstarter page because that's going to be for our weekly 2-back or not to back on Monday. Yes, there will be a weekly 2-back or not to back. There are too many games that launched this week, so there just has to be. But past that, Wiz-War's back on Kickstarter. We're going to call that news, because it's arguably news. Whenever I'm talking about games coming to Kickstarter, I'm like, I already have like 17 segments where I talk about Kickstarter. This is just one more, but it felt newsworthy to me, so we're doing it. Then from there, we have Expand Your Godtear Warband. Godtear Fenra Champion expansion. There's a new expansion for Godtear. This is not that relevant to you unless you like Godtear. Personally, I've recently started playing Godtear and I've been enjoying it, so now anything Godtear is like on my radar. So when I saw on my Facebook page that Steamforged Games has a new expansion, they teased it. They did like tease and shadows and showed you things so you can kind of, let's show you the picture. Nope, not gonna show you the picture well. This picture is for various miniatures. They teased things and I was like, this looks cool, even though I don't have like half the Godtear content anyway. I was like, but there's more Godtear content and I want it, and I probably should exercise some self-control. If it helps, I'm not hitting the pre-order button yet. I do want to play more Godtear, but I want to play more Godtear before I double down on just how invested I am on this series. But I like it so far. So that's Godtear, new expansion coming away. Then we have Seven Wonders Edifice. This, I think it's called Edifice, right? Is it Edifice? Is it Edifice? It's Edifice. I'm 99% certain about this, but sometimes I'm wrong. Fun fact, did you know that the word E-P-O-C-H, visually imagine that word, E-P-O-C-H, how do you pronounce that word? Because apparently, I used to say epoch, and then I found out it's epic. And then I found out from a comment that it was actually correctly epoch. And then I was like, this isn't right. Why do I have both pronunciations in my head and both people telling me it's right? And so I did that thing that sometimes I do called Google. And Google's like, hey, the British pronunciation of E-P-O-C-H is epic. Epoch is epoch. And then the American pronunciation is epic. And I'm kind of like, good. I was always right. And now I just found out that I was always right. That being said, Seven Wonders Edifice. Seven Wonders Edifice, give me a lever and I place a stand and I will move the earth. This was not meant to be a conversation about pronunciation, but I always want to say lever. Is lever correct? Is this another British versus US thing? Now I want to Google that. You see, for my entire life, instinctively, whenever I see the word lever, I think lever. But people always say lever. So now I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for me to have also been right all along. I'll be Googling this after this show over here, whether it's lever and lever, or whether it's just lever and I'm just wrong this time. Give me a lever and a place to stand and I will move the earth. Archimedes. We're not going to go on another pronunciation there. In Seven Wonders Edifice, develop cities and build edifices together. You have the choice. Join your opponents in sheer glory and wars, or do it alone and suffer the consequences. Choose wisely. The future of the city is in your hands. So this seems to be almost a slight callback to Seven Wonders Babel, which was the least well-received Seven Wonders expansion, to the point that when they did the second edition, they did not include that one as a reprint. But that said, it seems like they've incorporated some elements of that into Edifice. I'm very curious about this one. I will definitely be picking this up. Seven Wonders is one of 2 games that has been in my gaming collection since I got into gaming. Most games go away. Most games don't stand the test of time for me. They're good, but they have their moment and their opportunity, and then they go away. Seven Wonders has lasted along with Castle of Burgundy. I have everything. I guess technically I got rid of first edition and upgraded second edition, but that counts as sticking around. But that's Seven Wonders over here. From there, we have that Seven Wonders tab. We have over here a Chomp, Sale, Couture, and Mindspace. This is coming to you from BoardGameTables.com, technically called All Play. They've rebranded to All Play, but their Kickstarter name is kind of locked over there. So 2,100 backers, BoardGameTables.com, All Play. I should really get used to it. Allplay. Allplay has those 4 games coming to Kickstarter, I believe February sometime soon-ish. So again, more news about upcoming games. They're launching 4 games. They typically do a bunch of games all at once. They've been putting out a whole bunch. They do like, I don't know, 4 or 5 Kickstarters a year. They do a decent amount. They keep rotating them. They do a lot of reprints. I'm questioning which ones of these are reprints and which ones of these are original new games, but we can find that out together. Then we have Art of Kilforth, Art Book, and Gloom of Kilforth reprints. So a bunch of new products as well as reprint products for the world of Kilforth from Tristan Hall, from Hall & Nothing Productions. Why is my audio on? No, that was my device. That was my device whose Amazon's name cannot be said. Then we have Go on a Journey with the Lord of the Rings adventure book game. This is the 3rd adventure book game from Ravensburger, I believe from Ravensburger. Yes, from the upcoming game. This is going to be the Lord of the Rings adventure book. Am I excited? Absolutely I'm excited. Am I head over heels? No, not yet. I'm excited though. I want to see more. I like the Lord of the Rings book. I like the Lord of the Rings universe. I like the Ravensburger, games and whatnot. So I'm curious about this one. I'm curious to see if this is one that will hold up for me or not, or whatever. We'll find out. I'm sure I'll play it at some point. But this is the Lord of the Rings adventure book game from Ravensburger. And then we have Drillbit Dwarfs, another bit of announcement over here from Zero Rift Games. This is for my dedicated, loyal watcher, Dwarfarius, who every time I do anything, the comment I get is, does it have dwarfs in it? Does it have dwarfs in it? Does it have dwarfs in it? Drillbit Dwarfs has dwarfs in it. I guarantee it. This will be on Kickstarter coming shortly. Has 159 followers, so you gotta go ahead and follow it and back the game if you want it to be a success. Drillbit Dwarfs coming to Kickstarter. And then lastly, in news that has me very excited, we have Watch It Played. They are an up-and-coming new channel that I recommend you go ahead and subscribe to. They can use your sub, your view, I'm kidding. Watch It Played is tremendous. This is Rodney Smith. They've been around for who knows how long. Fun fact, when I first got into gaming, not fun fact, I guess, just general fact. When I first got into gaming, Rodney Smith was a channel that I found very quickly when I was trying to learn how to play Super Dungeon Explorer. I got Super Dungeon Explorer trying to learn how to play it, and I watched a series of playing through it. This is back when he literally played through series with his kids, and I used that to learn how to play. It was very helpful. And then he proceeded to continue to evolve and grow his channel to do tremendous things in the board game space. But one thing I've always loved on Watch It Played, on Rodney Smith, is that his Table Talk series, where he covers a board game topic, and then he has the video, then the responses, and he does Table Talk back, where he covers the responses and says, hey, you've said this, I've said that, let's have a conversation. And so Table Talk, he now has Should Your Board Game Tell a Story? Should it? Should it not? And this is the first Table Talk ever. This actually went up 2 weeks ago. I just missed it. This is the first Table Talk ever that that has the entire crew in it. So it's not just Rodney. It's the entire crew, their thoughts, and then of course the conversation, so that you can go ahead and be involved in the discussion. What do you think? Should board games tell stories? Yes. No. Do they? What about immersion storytelling? What about actual storytelling? What about paragraphs and paragraphs of text from stop you from playing the game? Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? How does that work for you? And it's a conversation. So go ahead and have that. Why should you? Because it's a conversation about board games. Those are the best conversations to have. And with that, let's go ahead and stop on all of this as we move to the next segment of the week, which is going to be the topic of the week, which I'm curious about your opinion on, because I have been doing this for a long time now. Long is relative, but I've been doing this channel for 3 years now, and I'm pretty sure the last time I did this conversation was probably about a year and a half ago, and I still haven't solved the problem. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. And this specifically is, how do you rate games outside your genre? Okay, how do you rate games when you are not the desired target audience for that game? Not like actually asking a question, I'll clarify. So let's take an example. And I think the first time I struggled with this is either Creature Comforts or Core Quest. So it's a long time, this struggle, a long time. When I first covered those two games as prototypes, not as finished games, as prototypes, both of those games, I rated them higher than I think I should. But that's because I was rating them based on the genre. So as a kid's game, this is fantastic. As a kid's game, Creature Comforts is like a 4.5 out of 5 even. Like as a kid's game, within the genre of kids game, I think it's tremendous. I think it has modules in terms of the way you can approach it. It has accessibility, it's cute artwork, it helps you grow in gaming. As a kid's game, it's a solid 4.5 out of 5 for me. But it's not a 4.5 for me. As a kid's game, it's a 4.5 for me. I had this problem this past week when I was covering a game, Tiny, and it's a problem that has never gone away. It's always been present. But I was reviewing Tiny Ninja Tournament, which is a dexterity game of little mini puzzles, carnival-style mini puzzles that you get engaged in, and you go through the little mini puzzle of the carnival game and all that stuff. And it's one of the best dexterity little mini puzzle games I've played. Possibly the best. It had a few small nitpicks, but again, probably a solid 4.5, maybe a 4 in the genre of like dexterity games. That is not my preferred go-to genre. For me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. But I was really impressed with what I was doing. I was hesitant to, do I give it just a 3.5? I think it's tremendous at what it's doing. But within my personal ratings of the games I enjoy, it's a 3.5 out of 5. And the tricky part is, I don't know where that line is. Meaning instinctively, what I want to do instinctively is I want to rate it based on the genre it's in, based on what it's trying to do and where it's trying to be, because a kid's game will otherwise never be a 5 out of 5 for me. So how can I properly rank something as a kid's game if it never has the potential to be a 5 out of 5 for me when I'm comparing it to games that are 5 out of 5 for me? If I'm looking at my Vindications, my Oath ones, my Gloomhavens, if I'm looking at all these games, my Terraforming Mars, Inish, if I'm looking at those games and I'm comparing it to a kid's game, that means a kid's game never has the potential to be a 5 out of 5. Is that the right way to walk into the rating something where it never has the potential to get there? Should I even be rating that? Maybe I just shouldn't rate kids games. Maybe I shouldn't. But then there aren't really a lot of channels heavily devoted to just kids games. So how else will you get those ratings when most channels cover most games? Sure, I won't cover things that aren't my genre at all. I don't want to play chit-based war games. That's just something I don't even want to play. Kids games I do want to play, but within the right context. So how do you struggle with that? How do you challenge that? So again, instinctively, because I don't believe a game should never have the potential to be a 5 out of 5, and therefore I should be rating it within the genre it's in. The flip side is, by that logic, any game that's not for me at all should theoretically be rated based on the target audience, which means I arguably shouldn't be rating it, maybe? I don't know. Like, there's many games. Let's take an example. I don't know, a game that didn't work for me, Imperium. Imperium Classics, Imperium Legends is a good game that gets very high ratings. People love it, and it appealed to me, but I did not like it. I think it's a great game, clearly. People like it, it's just not for me. But then, at what point am I rating things based on my own personal preference, and at what point am I rating things based on the genre it's in, and how do you distinguish that? Again, I've never found a good answer, because I have a problem with any answer I give. Because, going back to Tiny Ninja Tournaments, I want to say it's a 4 or 4.5 out of 5. Because I think it's incredible for what it's doing. But in my own personal ratings, it's not going to be that. In my own personal ratings, I'm not going to line it up next to, I don't know, I'm not going to line it up next to Anno 1800. Those aren't comparable games in the slightest in terms of the enjoyment and satisfaction I get out of them. So my personal collection will give it a 3.5, but then publicly I'll tell you it's a 4 or 4.5. But if I just call it a 3.5, then you don't understand that I really think it's an incredible dexterity game in terms of what it's trying to do. I think it's really hitting out of the park as far as what the target goal was and how they did it. It just happens to be the target goal only has a cap for me of where it'll end up. And that, to me, feels imperfect as a solution. But every option on the table feels imperfect. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. Speaking of table talk and table talk back, I welcome your thoughts here. I don't know. So the way I currently solve the problem, by the way, is I currently try to still rate it to a degree as close as possible to the rating, possibly giving it an edge. So, for example, using Tiny Ninja Tournaments, within the genre it's in, it might even be a 4.5. I kind of hedged between a 3.5 and a 4, being like, it could be either way on that one, because I want to give it the credit points, but not to a full 4.5, and then I use my words and the clarity to try to say, this is how I'm rating it, but also within the genre it's in, I think it's really impressive. And I do that with kids games as well. My Little Everdell, another good example. That's probably a 4.5 or even a 5 in terms of a kids game. It's accessible, it's compelling, it's got charming artwork, it's easy to teach, it's easy to play, and I try to use my words to clarify. For me, it's a 3.5. But within the genre it's in, this is so ridiculously impressive as far as what it's doing and how it's doing it that I think it's worth your time and attention. So that's the question. That's what I currently do. I think all of the options on the table are imperfect, and so I just keep being faced with the challenge every time I review a game where I think it's better than the public rating I'm giving it, but it's only better for the target audience. Life is complicated. Anyways, moving on from there. Also, all gateway games inherently would be higher if I... It's a problem. It's a problem. Moving on to the topic of the week, to the week in review. The week in review, starting off with what I played. Now, this week I did actually make sure to actually look at the games I want to talk about rather than figuring out on the fly. What I played used to cover all the games I played. Now I'm just picking out 3 or 4 games at any given point, 3 to 5 games a week, and focusing on those with a bit of nuance around them. Starting off with Point City. Point City is going to be an upcoming crowdfunding campaign from Flat Out Games and AEG. I think Flat Out Games will run it, and AEG will distribute it, same as their usual arrangement. And I actually didn't like Point Salad back in the day. I was tolerably okay with Point Salad, but I do like Point City. I think Point City gives you a fun little puzzle of a game that is still a lighter game. It's a gateway game for me, and I'll have a full rating and review and opinion of it up, but effectively it kind of mimics the Splendor model of gameplay where you're gathering cards, and those cards will let you buy more cards faster, and the cards escalate in cost, so you have those coming in, and it does so with enough changes from the Splendor formula to be compelling in its own right. There's a little bit of a puzzle as you take 2 cards from a display, having to always choose adjacent cards, but taking cards for their currency or for their building value as you build up a bunch of buildings, and as you gather various point scoring tokens that are going to score you extra bonus points based based on what you did and how you built out your city. I think it's fun. I think it falls into the Splendor camp for me, and so as you check my review when you eventually do, I don't think it's a game that's likely to stay forever. It is around for right now. I mean, right now it's prototype, so we'll see, but I do enjoy it, and I think that if you like Splendor, it's definitely hitting that kind of target audience well. I think Splendor will have a larger general accessibility, but I think Point City is very much going to hit those same marks in case you're interested in that. Then we have Encounter Shattered Wastes. In fact, that Encounter Shattered Wastes is on my table too because I want to dive into it more. But this is a game I've played twice already and hopefully we'll be playing a bit more because I really enjoy it with caveats. Well, again, we'll talk more about this during a review. This will be an upcoming Kickstarter campaign. But Encounter Shattered Wastes is one I've already dove into a few times, and I think it's giving you a high degree of replayability. It gives you 8 heroes, it gives you 8 monsters, you pick 4 heroes, 1 monster, you face off, you have changing forms, and it's a high degree, it's actually challenging once you start choosing the higher monsters. It's very challenging as far as how you try to survive the constant onslaught of the monster sending things your way and how you have to hold up against those attacks and eventually go into your other form to try to like have a last-ditch attempt. So there's a degree of escalation in the game, which I really do appreciate. I like that idea of escalation. I've always liked it from Cthulhu Death May Die and other games where things get more powerful. And the monster, when you finally defeat them, they enter their more powerful form. And your heroes, as they die, depending on how they die or depending on when you just choose to embrace your alternate form, you enter this higher power but slowly dying kind of form. So there's a degree of escalation if you're able to maintain the balance of the game. It is challenging. Early monsters are a little harder. Later monsters can be ridiculously hard. Middle monsters seem to be where I'm currently at with it. But I really like it. And I hope to be diving into it more and be giving you a lot more coverage and more ratings and opinions around the game at a later point in time. Then we have the Isofarian Guard. That's one that you'll see gameplay of this next week, I want to say. But Isofarian Guard, basically, Isofarian Guard from, oh my gosh, Sky Kingdom Games, they came back down over here, they visited again. They visited like a year ago. They visited again with the final production copy, like basically ready to go. And they basically went through the game again. And it both reminded me how much I like the game in some ways, and also why it wasn't like, I think I give it a 4 to 5, which currently, and it's a 4 to 5 with the caveat first impressions. There's only so many, this game has like 300 hours of gameplay and tons of campaign, and I spent hours and hours in the universe, in the world, but not enough to, again, it's kind of like reviewing Gloomhaven after, I don't know, 7-8 hours of play. You can't. You can give it first impressions after 7-8 hours of play, versus other games, going back to Point City requires like 2 hours of play to be able to give it a full review, because 2 hours of play is like 4 games, 5 games. Every game's different. And in the case of the Isofarian Guard, I need more time, so my review was the first impressions, and still is, and I hope to dive into it more. And that is key, by the way. I do hope to dive into it more. But the system of the unique characters and the puzzle they have as how they flip their cards and how they build up their cards and their abilities and their stats and try to take down the enemies, it's a really compelling system that also has a degree of repetitiveness in the gameplay. So one of the things that happens in the game is you find yourself using the same kind of sequence of combat as you go through it, and how you build up your bag matters a lot, and all these decisions will matter a ton, and they're a lot of fun to go through. But the one complaint I had a few small complaints, but one of the complaints is that I love the combat, but I find that you find yourself falling into patterns, which means 4 fights in a row can start to feel tedious. It starts as feeling rewarding, and then can start to feel tedious. Now, this will come down to how often you're playing, who you're playing with, often you're mixing things up. So ultimately, where I am with Isofarian Guard, still very excited about it, still plan on playing it, and I'm curious how it'll hold up to 100 hours of gameplay, let alone 300 hours of gameplay. Or even 30 hours of gameplay, honestly. Any game has different ranges, but we'll see. It's a big box with a lot of fun things. Be excited if you backed it. And then lastly, we have Stone Saga. This is another one where you'll be seeing upcoming stuff. This week's been a whole bunch of things. The games I want to talk about this week were either things I play all the time, like Gloomhaven or, roleplay adventures that I always talk about, or a bunch of stuff that are upcoming. And this week we're going with the upcoming stuff. So Stone Saga is going to be the last one there. Stone Saga is from Games, Out of My Mind Games, and they're one that they put out Mythwind, and honestly, I kind of trashed Mythwind. Not really trashed it. Trashed it as an excessive level of... I played Mythwind, and I basically said, hey, here are all the things that might make it work for you. Also, it straight up does not work for me. And it doesn't work for me because Mythwind is a game that plays with no end. You build so that you can keep building. You play so that you can keep playing. There's a sense of goals. Oh, this mission will be done when you do this. But you can't lose. You just keep engaging with the world around you, which works in some video games to some degree, but it doesn't work for me generally. And so Mythwind doesn't work for me. Will it work for you? Maybe. I don't know. Like, Mythwind's one of those weird games where if Mythwind arrives and everyone's like, this game is horrible, why does anyone like it? I wouldn't be surprised. And if Mythwind arrives and 80% of you are like, I love this world, I also wouldn't be surprised. I know it doesn't work for me. That said, credit to Games, because after me putting out that review, they reached out on Stone Saga and said, hey, we'd love to work with you again, which I always respect a publisher who embraces like, who embraces the fact that not all games are for everyone, and that doesn't mean the next one isn't. The good news is Stone Saga have a lot more good things to talk about. Stone Saga kind of has elements that Mythwind does, in the sense that you are building up the valley around you. You are kind of exploring this valley you uncovered, and you're encountering these various behemoths, and you're trying to survive, and you have to be mindful of utilizing your various, resources, and going foraging, and going into, going deep diving and mining, and all these different things, building up, shelters, and putting fires on the board, and making all these choices around how to basically complete these goals one at a time. To me, it kind of feels like Mythwind if Mythwind were slightly adjusted for me. Very different playstyle, but thematically, the general idea of building things up across a bunch of gameplays, really solid. But for me, Stone Saga, so far, is working. I have critiques, I have complaints, I have nitpicks, but most of them fall under the category of prototype for right now. For right now, Stone Saga it's not a game I'm in love with, not yet, but it's a game that has a lot of promise, and to me the question is, how does it iterate versus how much does it become grindy? There's a lot of those questions there, but ultimately it's a survival game of managing your resources and engaging in the world around you in a way that so far I find compelling. Keep in mind, I only have 3 scenarios in the prototype compared to like the 20 long missions, whatever it is you're going to have, so I'm only getting a taste of the world, but the taste of the world I both have feedback on that I'm giving to them as well as being overly compelled by it. That's what we have Stone Saga. And those are the games that I played this week, or those are 4 of the games that I played this week, which brings us to the week in review. The week in review starting off the bat with Saturday. Saturday, my first review was 4 games from Monkey Mind Games, or MNKY Mind Games. Did not like any of them. I thought they were all excessively light, not really that good, and they had great production quality, but I was sorely disappointed. I did not like them, not one bit. Then from there later on Saturday, we had a gameplay of Marvel Infinity Wars, Marvel United Infinity Wars, going through that with Devin as we go down and try to take down Thanos. You can check that out. I liked it personally. I had fun with the gameplay, and I really enjoyed it. My first time playing the Thanos Wars game, Thanos Infinity Wars, whatever thingy, Gauntlet, but that word, and I really enjoyed it. Hope to be doing it again at some point. Then from there, we had on Sunday we had Purging Unplayed Games. This is another video where I went through this with Meg, and then Devin shows up at the end as well, going through all my unplayed games and talking about which ones I'm compelled by, which ones I want to keep, which ones I reluctantly am going to let go. There's a lot of games I want to play, and for me, I was trying to basically choose, hey, I have so many unplayed games, and I'm always getting in new ones. What's like the bottom 15, the bottom 25? What are the bottom ones that I still want to play, but less so to the point that they're always going to keep getting pushed down to the bottom, and it's time to say goodbye. It's time to let go. Honestly, it's a harder video than my usual purges. I have no problem getting rid of a game that isn't for me. Getting rid of a game that I haven't played always is harder, and I did like 25 in one shot. You can check out that video if you want a little bit of pain and frustration along for your Sunday. That was my Sunday. I don't know when it was for you. Anyways, on Monday we had 2 back and not to back. Diving into a bunch of games. Marvel United, we had Aegis, I think it's pronounced. I think that's how it's pronounced. Someone corrected me. Bunch of games over there in our 2 back and not to back. We'll be back with this week with more 2 back and not to back, because there's a bunch of campaigns to go through, including, well, you saw Wiz-Wars already. There's also the Batman game on GameFound. There's the Witchstone, maybe, is that what it's called? There's a bunch of games to go through, whole bunch of things. We'll be going through all those on this week's 2 back or not to back. Then on Tuesday, we had a bunch of videos as usual. Tuesday, we started with a War Machine review. This is Manhattan Project War Machine from Grail Games. They kind of took on the license, and they're putting the next game out in the series. I enjoyed it, had some small complaints, but overall enjoyed the fairly fast tableau building experience. Then later on Tuesday, we had a review for Deep Shelf. This is another Kickstarter. You can check that out. That's a strong tableau building, deep diving adventure game. Lots of fun things going on about it. Aesthetically, it doesn't pull me in, so I have some complaints. I think if the aesthetics were different, I'd like it a lot more. Like, it really does matter, and that's obviously a personal choice, factor that in, but there's always so many interesting things that go into liking a game or not. For me, Deep Shelf really has a lot of the mechanics that work for me, and I do like it. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. By the way, War Machine, I gave it 3.5, trending towards a 4-ish. I was very on the fence, a few small things. That's a very prototype or final copy kind of conversation. Deep Shelf, kind of same thing. Right now it's a 3.5. I could see it going to a 4. It would not be less than a 3.5. There's too many things I like, and I don't imagine it goes to a 4.5. So we'll see, but that's Deep Shelf, both prototype reviews. Then lastly on Tuesday, we had another prototype review for Scrap. Scrap's going to be an area control game. Really enjoyed that one. A lot of solid things. The biggest complaint, again, it's another one where the art really didn't work for me aesthetically. There were 2 aspects that didn't work for me. The art and style doesn't pull me in, and then the combat resolution system is from Rising Sun, similar system to that, and I don't like that combat resolution system. The rest of it, strongly enjoyed. Gave the one a 4. I really like it. I'm curious to see whether it holds up long term. Ultimately, time will tell. And then from there, that is Scrap. That was Wednesday. Then from Wednesday, we have a few videos going up. We had Deluxe Games, another Deluxe Games video, this time featuring Caverna Coins, Caverna Insert, and Marvel United Insert from One Sharp Joe, and then the Oros. We had Deluxe Game Oros in that video as well. Then later on Tuesday, we had our weekly live show. Devin and Meg are back for the weekly live where we talk about what goes in the ultimate game room. And also, as usual, we had a game show, which I spent like an hour putting together, and they pounded through that in like 7 minutes. So check out that game show if you want. It was really, I need to make the game show. See, the past 2 game shows, I made a little bit too hard and I got flack for them being too hard. This one, I thought I made it the right amount of hardness. Nope, it made it too easy apparently. We'll be back next week with more game shows. Actually, I think next week Meg is running the game show. So actually next week I'll be a contestant. You can check that out. And then lastly on Tuesday, we had an unboxing for Tanares Adventures, the mostly all-in. I say mostly all-in because the actual core box over here, this bad boy, this is going to be unboxed later today probably. Probably without me wearing the poncho. The poncho's around a decent amount. It's cold down here. But this bad boy, the core box of Tanares Adventures, that'll be unboxed separately. The rest of it was all unboxed, and you can check out that if you want to see a ton of painted miniatures, cool goodies, and fun stuff. Although I have to figure out the storage solution stuff because it's not going to be stored the way it is now. That is simply not sustainable. I don't know what I'm going to do, but not the way it is now. And that brings us to, that was Wednesday, which brings us to Thursday. Thursday we had 15 games that have a better version. This is a video where I go through, I may have said this video was coming out last week, but it's not. It's coming out this week. 15 games that have a better version. Basically, this is me going through a bunch of comparisons and saying, hey, this game came out with this version, and this version directly replaces it for me. A bunch of good examples, like including like the Crew and the Crew Deep Sea. The Crew Deep Sea is simply better than the Crew. Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. I dare you to tell me I'm wrong. In fact, in that video, I do, in fact, dare you to tell me I'm wrong. Then on Friday, we had giving away Lacerdas and Hoplomachus. Basically, I'm going to be doing a video on Friday, or I did a video on Friday, where I give away 6 Lacerdas. It's not today, or not Friday. It's going to be iteratively as we hit certain milestones, sub-milestones, whenever we hit them. No time limit on them, anything like that. But basically, as we hit the next 500 subs and 500 subs, all the way up to 50k, I'm going to be giving away Lacerda games. Although you do have to tune into the Week in Review, this video, kind of here, to claim them. And then additionally, when we hit 2,000 subs over on Camp Co-op, I'll be giving away a copy of Hoplomachus Victorum if you want to check that out. Both those, and again, all cases you gotta check over here to see the Week in Review where I'll tell you what's up as far as who won. But check those out. That's going to be over on Camp Co-op for 2,000 subs, and then every 500 subs over on this channel here for a bunch of big box Lacerdas and Hoplomachus, basically like $1,000 worth of games, something like that. Lacerdas go for like 100 to 150 a piece. Some of them are Kickstarter versions. So like, I don't know, $800 to $1,000 worth of games in that video. Enjoy. Using a good health. Also, thanks for watching and supporting the channel. I appreciate all of you very, very much. Yeah, also I have a Patreon. Camp Co-op has a Ko-Fi. There's all these ways to support the channel, but also just watching, clicking, liking, sharing, commenting, and just being here. Moral support. Moral support matters a lot. More than you think. I'm not even being sarcastic. I appreciate all of you, genuinely. Which brings us to today. Today we have a few things going up. We're going to have 2 videos. First of all, we're going to have a review for Dinner in Paris. That's going to be a game I had a while, but it's been a review that's been sitting in the backlog, just waiting to come out. And then we have a gameplay of Marvel United Sinister 6 this time. So if you want to see us play against the Sinister 6, win or lose, you can check that out. That'll be going up later today. Sorry for all the Marvel United content. It's the time of the year. We have the Kickstarter. Things have to happen. It's going to happen. And then lastly, coming up this week, we have a few things. We're going to have 5 reasons not to back or buy a game coming up, I believe, on Sunday, but we'll see. As well as I'm starting a series of lists. They're going to be like over the next several weeks, like 5, 6, 7 weeks, whatever it's going to be. There's going to be 5 videos going up, 1 a week. Not necessarily every week, it might be every other week. We'll figure it out. But basically doing a bunch of 2021 lists, because all the 2022 lists have been taken now. This first one coming up this week is going to be 2021 Hidden Gems. All of these lists have 15 games, not 10, not 20, 15 games. And this particular week, we have 2021 Hidden Gems, 15 games that you should pay attention to in some way that aren't the ones that people are talking about the most. Some of them they are talked about, you've probably heard of a bunch of them, but they're not as extensively praised or talked about. You can check that video out coming up this week. And lastly, the games on the table. Games on the table, these are the things I hope to be diving into this week. We are into prototype season, which means I have a list of like 20 Kickstarter games that I have to be covering over the next 2 months. I've already gotten through a bunch of them. There are more to go, but I hope to be diving more into Encounters Shadows Waste, which I've already played a few times, like it, have more opinions, more thoughts, which I'm continuing to dive into this. We have Couture. They already dove into this one as well, but expect more thoughts and opinions. We have Homeworld, which I have not played yet, but I need to play this week. I've read the rules. I'm good to go. I'm prepped. It's all going to happen. This is coming to you from Edifice Games. And then lastly, I believe this was on the table last week, but I didn't play it, unfortunately, and I want to play it this week. We have Time of Empires from Pearl Games. They did Gingopolis and Black Angel and some other games. I don't remember all of them offhand. But either way, hope to be diving into Time of Empires as well. I'm guessing I get to 3 out of these 4. I'm guessing. We'll see. If I had to guess, I'd say Caperium gets pushed, Homeworld gets played, Time of Empires gets played, and Encounter Shadow Waste gets played. That's my guess, but we'll see. In any case, that is your week in review. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you. And as always, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.